Broncos country. Welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be ranking my top 10 players per position for the 2024 NFL Draft pre-combine. As you're watching this, the day you're watching this, I am trying to get this out early Monday morning. I'm actually recording it at like 1 a.m. on Monday morning. It is the NFL Combine. Today we get to start the NFL Combine, and I of course have my spreadsheet, and I'm going to be taking notes, watching all the prospects. So this list is bound to change by, well, really next week when the Combine concludes. But I just wanted to go over my top 10 players per position before the Combine starts. Now, you might be watching this after the Combine. You might be watching this during the Combine. These are my rankings before the Combine has even started. So if you do enjoy this video, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers, and if you could help me reach that goal, that would mean the absolute world to me. I have big plans for the channel when we do hit 500 subscribers. So if you could go ahead and help out by subscribing, that obviously helps out a lot, and then leaving a like helps push the videos out to get the video out to many more people so they can see the content and hopefully help subscribe. And I want to do this as a career, and so by having people subscribe, that will help me eventually make this a career, hopefully in the future. But now, with that being said, before we get into the positional rankings, as always, I just want to remind you that Jesus is King, and I pray that you give your life to him because he has got a plan and a purpose for you. And if you accept Jesus with your whole heart and believe that he has died on the cross for your sins, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple. It's not through any works that we can do, although going to work or although going to church and doing good works are good. They're good things to do. It is not how we're saved. It is solely through the works of Jesus Christ, who sacrificed himself, died on the cross, and rose from the dead 3 days later for our sins. That is the only way we make it to heaven, not through our works, but through the works of Jesus alone. And now, with that being said, let us go ahead and let's jump in to the pre-combine rankings. So we're going to be starting with the quarterback position, and first things first, I just want to mention I'm not going to be going into depth. I'm not going to be going into details because that would make this a 5-hour video, because I like to go on rants and I like to go on tangents. So we're just going to be solely going through the player. We're going to be naming player, what school they go to, and maybe a little bit more information if I have something to say. But if you guys want a full breakdown, I'll probably do my top 10 players heading into the NFL draft, and we'll just make separate videos for those as the draft gets closer. As for the number 10 quarterback, it is going to be the Notre Dame quarterback in Sam Hartman, formerly of Wake Forest. Geez, I said Wake Forest, very weird. But then we have Joe Milton at number 9 of Tennessee, Michael Pratt at number 8 from Tulane. Number 7 for me is going to be Jordan Travis out of Florida State. I do think that, in my opinion, he was a day 2 pick, but with his ACL injury, I think he might fall into day 3. At number 6 is going to be Michael Penix Jr. And of course, if you guys want to see these guys more in depth and my opinions on them, I have a video on my channel. I believe it's the latest video on, and it's titled "Who I Want the Denver Broncos to Draft at Quarterback," something along those lines. Number 5 is going to be Bo Nix out of Oregon, formerly of Auburn, and of course, Michael Penix, formerly of Indiana. Number 4 is going to be J.J. McCarthy, someone who I am personally super high on, and I know it's a debate for a lot of people, but I am a J.J. McCarthy fan. Number 3 is going to be Jaden Daniels. Number 2, of course, Drake May, and number 1, Caleb Williams, the 2 generational prospects at 1 and 2. So now let's go to running backs, and at number 10 we have got Ray Davis, followed by Dylan Johnson of Washington, and I feel like Dylan Johnson might be a little bit low, but I'm excited to watch him at the Combine. Hopefully he competes in some of the drills, at least. Definitely the 40 and then some of the running back drills I do hope he competes in, but we'll have to see. He was a stud at Washington, could definitely be a riser here. Number 8 is going to be Audric Estim out of Notre Dame. Number 7 is going to be Will Shipley out of Clemson. Number 6 is going to be Cody Schrader out of Mizzou. Now, I definitely could see Cody Schrader out of Missouri. I definitely could see him as a riser for me after the combine and as we get closer to the draft. But we will have to see. Of course, I can't predict the future. And if he has a combine, I definitely could see him rising in this list. Number 5 is going to be Bucky Irving out of Oregon. Number 4 is going to be Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. He had a pretty solid season with the Longhorns this season. It wasn't easy to fill in the shoes of Bijan Robinson, but hey, he had a solid season. Number 3 is going to be Trey Benson from Florida State. Number 2 is going to be Blake Corum, which might shock a lot of people because Michigan had a run-heavy offense, and a lot of people might have Blake Corum as their number 1 running back in this class. But for me, I've got to go with Braylon Allen. I remember watching the bowl games Braylon Allen's freshman year with my uncle. He kind of put me on the radar of Braylon Allen when I believe he was 17 years old in that bowl game. And ever since then, I've been a fan of Braylon Allen. So maybe a little bit of bias, but I am a huge, huge fan and a huge believer in Braylon Allen. At number 10, or I guess now we're moving on to wide receivers. At number 10, it's going to be Xavier Legette out of South Carolina for the wide receivers. Number 9 is going to be Jalen Polk, one of 2 Washington receivers here on this top 10 wide receiver list. Number 8 is going to be Xavier Worthy, one of 2 Texas receivers here on this top 10 list. Now, my only issue with Xavier Worthy is he most likely projects as a slot wide receiver, so I do think he will be picked late first at the earliest, but I see him more as a second round, maybe falls to the third round, just because I do think he's a slot receiver, but I think he's a second round pick. I do believe he'll probably go in the second. He's a really solid receiver, just don't know how he projects on the outside, and I do think he'll be a slot receiver in the NFL. At number 7, it's going to be Troy Franklin out of Oregon, and this might be a little low for Troy Franklin. Personally, I haven't got to study up and watch a whole lot of Troy Franklin, so he definitely could be a riser for me in this category after the NFL Combine and before the draft. Number 6 is going to be Adonai A.D. Mitchell from Texas, formerly from the Georgia Bulldogs. Number 5 is going to be Brian Thomas Jr., one of 2 LSU receivers on here. Number 4 is going to be the Michigan State transfer in Keon Coleman. Number 3 is going to be Rome Odunze, and these top 3 I feel like are kind of solidified. Obviously could change as we get closer to the draft, but I feel like this is a lot of people's top 3, and I don't know how much these top 3 guys are going to change by the time the NFL draft gets here. Number 2 is going to be Malik Nabers. Now, I am an LSU fan. That's my college. So I'm really hoping Malik Nabers doesn't go to the Chargers because I think they're probably going to be looking at receiver or something like that. I hope Malik Nabers doesn't go there just because of the fact that he's a really good receiver and he played for my favorite college team. But, of course, I don't want them to get Brock Bowers, but we'll get to him in a second. And then number 1, I have got Marvin Harrison Jr. It's no secret. The son of former NFL wide receiver Marvin Harrison. He's just so good. I feel like he would be the number 1 wide receiver in most drafts, or I guess not most drafts, but most draft classes that we've had, he would be the wide receiver 1 in. He's just insanely talented, and he's going to be picked early. It might be a lot of people might say, hey, well, this is an early pick for a receiver, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is definitely worth that early pick. Number 10 for tight ends is going to be Erick All out of Iowa. Now, Erick All was not the number 1 tight end at Iowa, in my opinion, but Luke Lachey, he did not declare for this draft, so Luke Lachey will be in next year's draft. But next up at number 9, we have got Jared Wiley from TCU. At number 8, Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. At number 7, we got Dallin Holker from Colorado State. Local guy for me, as I am from Colorado. Obviously, didn't go to college here, didn't go to Colorado State or CU. I went out of state, but a local guy for the Denver Broncos, I should say. I still live in Colorado, so he's a local guy for me, but didn't go to any of the Colorado schools. I went out of state, like I said. But Dallin Holker, my number 7 tight end. Number 6, a guy who I might be a little bit higher on than most people, is going to be Brevin Spanford out of the University of Minnesota. Number 5 is going to be Theo Johnson from Penn State. Number 4 is going to be Cade Stover. Jeez, sorry, I'm mispronouncing. It's late. It's early. We're getting through a lot of names right now. I'm trying to go fast so we're not sitting here all day. But Cade Stover out of Iowa State. Number 3 is going to be Ja'Tavion JT Sanders. A lot of people might be surprised that he is not my number 2 tight end, but I do still think that Ja'Tavion Sanders is a really, really good tight end. At number 2, though, for me, is going to be Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell has just sort of become my guy. I've done a bunch of mock drafts that, I haven't posted all of them necessarily. I've posted some, but Jaheim Bell is my guy and someone who I want the Denver Broncos to target sometime in the NFL draft, because with Greg Dulcich's injuries, I would like us to target Jaheim Bell as a receiving threat tight end. But of course, the number 1 tight end is Brock Bowers, one of those generational tight end prospects. You kind of think back to 2021 with Kyle Pitts. Yeah, someone who I don't want any of our division rivals getting, the Broncos anyway. I don't think that the Raiders will get him because they're too far back. They're 1 pick behind us, and they drafted Michael Mayer last season. The Chiefs, I don't think, are going to get him all the way back at 32. And then I just hope the Chargers don't get him or Malik Neighbors. That would be a bad time for me, and I feel like all Denver Broncos fans. At number 10 for offensive tackles, we have got Kieran Mgaji out of Yale. He's kind of one of those guys who I noticed when doing the mock draft process, and I was like, okay, yeah, he could be a solid late round guy, and he slowly started to rise up boards, and he would be a solid late round tackle. I don't know if the Broncos will go after him necessarily, because we do have Garrett Bowles, who is entering his final year of his contract. Then we got Mike McGlinchey, who we signed to that 5-year deal, I believe, last offseason. Then I like Alex Polkowski, who is the undrafted Illinois free agent from last season. So I don't know. Maybe the Broncos potentially go offensive tackle late, but I kind of highly doubt it. But if the Broncos do go offensive tackle late, this is someone who I would definitely be targeting. At number 9, we have got Jordan Morgan from the University of Arizona. Number 8 is going to be Kingsley Sayamata, offensive tackle out of BYU. Number 7 is going to be the Oklahoma Sooners offensive tackle and Tyler Guyton. Number 6 for me, and this is where it gets really intriguing, because I think these top 6 guys all could go in the first round, and if they don't, they're all going to go in the top 2 rounds, in my opinion. And the number 6 guy is out of Washington, and it's Troy Fautanu. Number 5 is going to be Amarius Mims, someone who I was looking at for the Denver Broncos as a potential Garrett Bowles replacement for the future, because that is the one thing I don't know if the Broncos are going to re-sign Garrett Bowles after this season. So maybe look for an offensive tackle somewhere. I don't think it's going to be in the first round. I think we're going to be going quarterback, but maybe in the later rounds. I forgot to mention that earlier. Maybe we go offensive tackle in next year's draft. We'll have to see. But Amarius Mims for me is my number 5 offensive tackle. Number 4 is going to be the Alabama offensive tackle and J.C. Latham. Number 3 for me is going to be a riser. It was originally J.C. Latham at 3 for me, but now Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State is now become my number 3 offensive tackle in this year's draft. Number 2 is going to be Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. I know a lot of people have him as their number 1, but for me, my number 1 offensive tackle is still Olu Fashanu. Maybe not super great in the run blocking department. I could have got that wrong. I can't remember exactly. It's very late, but he's elite. I believe he's elite in pass protection, but not so great in run blocking. And I could get that wrong. I'm having a brain fart right now on which one he's better at, but I'm still a big Olu Fashanu fan, and to me, he's still my number 1 offensive tackle. Moving on to the interior offensive linemen. So this is going to combine centers and guards, just because typically if you do top 10 centers and top 10 guards, some of them are going to be projected undrafted free agent players. So I'm just combining them together. And at number 10 is going to be Bo Limmer out of Arkansas. I believe he is the Arkansas center. At number 9 is going to be Dominic Pooney out of Kansas. Number 8 is going to be Zach Zenner from Michigan. I know he's played some tackle a little bit at the University of Michigan, I believe. And I think he also went down with an injury in the season, so he could fall a little bit because of that. Number 7 is going to be Christian Mahogany, guard out of Boston College. Number 6 is going to be Christian Hayes out of UConn. It's very rare you see UConn players in here. I remember there's that D tackle from a couple years back. I'm kind of blanking on his name right now from UConn, but another UConn guy in Christian Haynes. Number 5 is going to be Cedric Von Prawn. I believe he's a center out of Georgia, but I think he also has some experience at guard as well. Number 4 is going to be Cooper Bebe. I believe he also has tackle experience. I think he played guard this past season, but I can't remember exactly. But I do believe he has offensive tackle experience as well, if I'm not mistaken. Number 3 is going to be the West Virginia center in Zach Frazier. Number 2 is going to be the Duke guard in Graham Barton. And the number 1 interior offensive lineman, I feel like for a lot of people, is Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon. In my opinion, I feel like he's slowly sneaking up boards. I don't think he goes in the first round, but maybe he sneaks in. But yeah, Jackson Powers Johnson, the number 1 interior offensive lineman and the number 1 center in this year's class. For defensive line at number 10, we are starting with Mekhi Wingo out of LSU. Number 9 is going to be Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Number 8 is going to be Rook Orhoro out of Clemson. His last name always trips me up, and I struggle with that. Orhoro, I believe, is how you pronounce it. But yeah, it always trips me up when I try and say it. Number 7 is going to be Mason Smith out of LSU, someone who is projected to have a big year. Didn't play a whole lot at LSU. Previously, I think he played 8 games before the season. Was expected to have this monster season and be that number 1 defensive lineman in the class. I remember in the preseason, didn't have that super spectacular season, but still had a decent season, and he's the number 7 defensive lineman for me. Number 6 is going to be Leonard Taylor out of the University of Miami. Number 5 is going to be Chris Jenkins. Number 4 is going to be Michael Hall, someone who I would like the Denver Broncos to select if, for example, we trade down from the 12th overall pick and we pick up a second-round pick. I'd like the Broncos to target Michael Hall in the second round. Number 3 is going to be T'Vondre Sweat, someone who absolutely feasted at Texas, someone who I wouldn't mind the Broncos selecting in the second round either in a trade-down scenario. Byron Murphy out of Texas is the number 2 defensive lineman for me. And it's not the former Arizona Cardinal cornerback, current Minnesota Vikings cornerback who played at the University of Washington, was drafted in the second round by the Cardinals. It is the Texas defensive lineman, Byron Murphy, and him and T'Vondre Sweat made up a heck of a 1-2 combo. And then number 1 is going to be Johnny Newton, Jerzon Newton, the number 1 interior offensive lineman. And I think the consensus number 1 defensive lineman in this class. And it could change after the combine. It could change, but this is just my pre-combine rankings. At number 10 for edge rushers, we got Jonah Ellis out of the University of Utah. Number 9 is going to be Brandon Dorlus from the University of Oregon. Number 8 is going to be Chris Braswell out of the University of Alabama, one of 2 Alabama edge rushers on this top 10 list. Number 7 is going to be Adisa Isaac out of Penn State, one of 2 Penn State edge rushers as well. Number 6 is going to be Darius Robinson from the University of Missouri, Mizzou. Number 5 is going to be Chop Robinson from Penn State. Number 4 is going to be Braylon Trice from Washington. And there's a couple other Washington edge rushers that I didn't get to include, but one of those other Washington guys is Zion Tupuola-Fetui. He is going to be a solid edge rusher, I think. Probably going to go late day 2, early day 3 if I had to guess. Number 3 is going to be Jared Verse, and it's tough because I'm a huge Jared Verse fan, and it sucks to move him down to number 3, but I had to do it with the 2 other guys in front of him. Number 2 is going to be Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. It's tough. To me, it's very close between Laiatu Latu and Jared Verse. as my number 2 edge rusher. I don't think you can go wrong, and I feel like it's pick whichever one you prefer at that point. But my number 1 edge rusher is going to be from the University of Alabama, and it is going to be Dallas Turner. And I think Dallas Turner is a fantastic edge rusher. However, I don't think he is on the same level that Will Anderson is, who came out of Alabama from last season, who was my number 1 player last season in the 2023 NFL draft. But let's not kid ourselves. Dallas Turner is a heck of an edge rusher as well. Heck of an edge rusher. And it doesn't matter what happens in college, because Dallas Turner could end up being the better edge rusher. I mean, you look at LSU, you had Ja'Marr Chase, you had Justin Jefferson. I mean, they're both pretty good. You can kind of choose who's better, but my opinion, I feel like a lot of people, they say the consensus right now is Justin Jefferson is the number 1, and I mean, I'm an LSU fan, so I can't pick. I can't pick between the two, but Ja'Marr Chase was definitely that number 1 receiver at LSU, and I think Dallas Turner, he's a heck of an edge rusher. As for linebackers, this is a position group I haven't got to study a whole lot, but as of right now, at number 10, we got Tyron Hopper out of the University of Missouri. At number 9, we got Tyrese Knight out of the University of Texas, El Paso, or UTEP. At number 8, we got Jalen Ford from the University of Texas. At number 7, we got Trevin Wallace out of the University of Kentucky. At number 6, we got Tommy Eichenberg out of the Ohio State University. At number 5, we got Cedric Gray from North Carolina. At number 4, we got Junior Colson from the University of Michigan. At number 6, geez, I tried to say 3 and 6 at the same time, and it just ended up coming out as thick. That's kind of embarrassing, but my number 3 linebacker is going to be Edgerrin Cooper. At number 2, we have Peyton Wilson from NC State, and at number 1, we've got Jeremiah Trotter Jr. As for the cornerbacks, my number 10 cornerback comes from the University of Michigan, and it's someone who has risen up the boards as well. I initially saw him in like the 5th round. Now I think he's going in the 2nd, 3rd round, and it's Mike Sainristil. I think he's a solid cornerback, and honestly deserving to go in the 2nd, 3rd round as well. At number 9, for me, is going to be Ennis Rakestraw from the University of Missouri. Number 8 for me is going to be TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. And this guy is a huge riser. I remember doing a mock draft, I think it was like November, December. TJ Tampa was projected in the 7th round, and now I think he's a projected late 1st rounder, early 2nd rounder. And good for TJ Tampa for rising the board. Number 7 is going to be Kalen King out of Penn State. Number 6 is going to be the Georgia corner and Kamari Lassiter. Number 5 is going to be Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, and I'm gonna say the meme line that everyone's saying. He is a sneaky athlete. Number 4 is going to be Quinion Mitchell. Number 3 is going to be Nate Wiggins. Number 2, to me, I might still be a little bit too high on this guy, but someone who I'm still a big fan of in this draft, and that's going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry. And number 1, his teammate is going to be Terrion Arnold. Now, someone who didn't make the list that, you might have an argument for, in my opinion, is going to be Jason Marshall Jr. I think he declared for the draft. He might be going back to Florida for another year. But he's someone who I think could be on this list as well if he has officially declared for the NFL draft. And finally, for our final position groups, because we're not doing long snappers, we're not doing punters, and we're not doing kickers, we got safeties. And the number 10 safety for me comes from the University of Utah, Nsione Vaki. Number 9 is going to be Beau Parade, and safeties is still another one who I need to do more work on, but I'm not super high on a safety this year like I was in Brian Branch last season. Number 8 is going to be James Williams from the University of Miami. Number 7 is going to be Tyke Smith from the University of Georgia. Number 6 is going to be Cole Bishop from the University of Utah, both Utah safeties up here. Number 5 is going to be Jaden Hicks from Washington State University. Number 4 is going to be Kalen Bullock from USC. And then at number 3, we got Javon Bullard, kind of similar last names, out of the University of Georgia. Number 2 is going to be Tyler Nubin out of the University of Minnesota. And the number 1 safety in this year's draft. Geez, I am having a hard time pronouncing words. Forgive me. It is super early. It's like 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, almost 2 in the morning actually. And anyway, my number 1 safety is Cameron Kinchens, and that is going to wrap up my list. I know this video was kind of fast. It's 25 minutes, but didn't go into a whole lot of detail on each player, just because, like I said, it would probably been 5 hours long because of how long I get on like tangents and rants. And I just wanted to get this list out here for you guys so you guys could know who my top players are if you were curious. And this list is bound to change, so I'll probably make an updated list before the NFL draft, and we'll probably break these down into separate videos leading up to the draft. So like the day before the draft will be safeties, and then I'll schedule it out so that every day is a different position group. Start with the quarterbacks and running backs, receivers, XYZ, etc. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. My next video is going to be a keep or walk Denver Broncos free agent additions, so look forward to that in the coming days. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.